Greetings, ghosts and ghouls, and welcome to Bad Boo, a podcast conjured for the curious where we explore all things frights, flicks, and folklore.
We are your haunting hosts, Sam and Jody, guiding you through every episode of occult exploration and holding your hand the whole way through.
So, if you like the sound of spooks, screams, and symphonies, keep listening as we unravel our mystic matter for this week.
In today's episode, we'll be nervously trekking through the gruesome folklore of Krampus and the frightening history behind it.
Ooh.
So, yeah, this is our final wintry episode.
It is.
Now.
We don't mean to cramp your style.
Very good. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, are we... I mean, when we're recording this, Christmas wouldn't have come, but by the time it's out, it would have come.
So let us know in the comments what you got for your presents. What did you have on Christmas Day for your dinner?
Yep.
What are your plans for the new year? Let us know.
Yes.
Drop a comment. Drop a like while you're down there.
Yes, please. And yeah, we just hope you've had a nice, safe and relaxed Christmas. But from when you be hearing this, it will actually be afterwards. So let's get into something a little bit more gruesome now. Now Christmas is gone and all the jolliness is dissipated into the bleakness of the snowy surroundings. Probably not if you're in the UK. Let's get into it. So
there's going to be a few of you that would have heard maybe a couple of bumps in the night during your Christmas period. And this episode is going to be about who it might have been. And that is Krampus.
Our good friend Krampus, not so good.
And as we start every single episode, we always have to go with the basic question of what is it? So, what is Krampus?
So, Krampus in folklore is sort of described as the shadow of Saint Nicholas, i.e. Father Christmas, serving as the enforcer of morality during the winter season. He's not just like a random monster that's been created per se. He is part of a complex social system designed to keep order when the nights are at their longest.
Ooh.
So he's kind of like an anti-Santa, if you like, I suppose.
An anta.
Yes. We trademark that and copyright it. So
it's quite funny because it kind of sounds like antler.
Antler.
Yeah.
And he does kind of have antler-esque horn things, doesn't he? So.
But speaking of those little horns that he's got, physically speaking, he is like a quote-unquote beast man archetype. And that's because he's always depicted as like a hairy, goat-like humanoid creature with cloven hooves, a long pointed tongue that like rolls out onto his targets, and a large sweeping set of like horns. And he typically wears iron chains and bells around his waist to announce his arrival, and usually typically has like a red cloak imitating Santa as well.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd I mean, if you're a kid and you heard the bells, you think, oh great, Santa. But then like some guy with horns comes in, you're thinking, oh shit, that ain't Santa Claus at all.
Santa Claus? Maybe Santa Claus.
Claws.
Yes.
That's it. There we go. So we're already coming out of the puns. And we just started, so you're in for a pretty good treat. So why don't you subscribe if you're on YouTube and follow if you're on Spotify while you're here. But folklore places Krampus in a very strict partnership. So, like we said, while Saint Nicholas is the good father, who handles the rewards and the spiritual blessings, Krampus is the dark father, if you like, and
not
handles...
to get confused with Darth Vader.
Not the Dark Lord or Darth Vader, as in Luke. Well, he doesn't say, Luke, I am your father. He says, no, I am your father. He handles the physical discipline. He is the personification of the consequences of one's actions. Oh. So, again, he's very serious when, like, it's not just coal you'll be getting in your sack. It's kind of like some quite severe punishment, if you like. It is,
and to carry out those punishments, he actually carries two primary items. The first one is a bundle of birch branches, or rutin, which are used to swat those who have been naughty. And also a large basket or sack, known as cracks, which is strapped to his back.
And unlike modern horror movie monsters that will sort of simply just kill, the folklore Krampus is actually a kidnapper in some interpretations
Hence
as
what
well.
the sack or the basket's for.
Exactly. His purpose is to stuff the most wicked children into his basket and carry them away, sometimes to a frozen wasteland, sometimes to a deep forest, and in darker versions, directly to hell or to be eaten.
Ooh.
So that's quite, I mean, that's for some like seriously naughty people, surely. I mean, it wouldn't be fair if, like, I don't know, you spilt the milk out the fridge and you're then eaten by a goat man.
Yeah. You know, this is like if you're like terrorizing the town or like terrorizing your parents.
You are like,
or if you're not doing your homework.
Demon-born. Yeah. If you're not doing your homework.
You're being naughty and misbehaving.
Yep. That is another.
Then Krampus might be after you. Who knows?
We hope not, but you know, we all want Saint Nick.
Yeah.
We all want Saint Nick, and we hope that Saint Nick has come to visit you by the time you're listening to this.
But just going back for a second, where we briefly mentioned that Krampus does often have like chains around him, that's because a key part of the folklore is that the chains that are often shown in his image symbolize that he is like a tamed or bound evil, and that he's actually a servant of light who is only allowed to do his work on a specific night of the year. And the day that he carries this out is December the 5th, or Krampusnacht, which is like the name of that day. Excuse my pronunciation, I am not from that part of Europe, but it's a very cool accent and I wish that I had it.
Yes, I think we all do sometimes. It'd be kind of tough to speak in such a lingo. In Krampus's original folk context, he sort of represented the darkness of winter itself. He is the cold, he is the hunger, and he is the fear of the unknown that people felt before modern electricity. So by becoming Krampus in, say, festivals, the community confronts their fears through like controlled or ritualized chaos, if that makes sense. So it's kind of allows people to sort of be a little bit like, or turn into their inner Krampus, but in like a controlled way that doesn't like hurt people. And
where he's like a kind of evil worker of light, it kind of makes him like a fallen angel in the same way that like the devil is. So in a way, the Krampus festival kind of has the same type of like aura as Halloween, and you're dressing up as like the demons and stuff that you're afraid of, to like blend in with them and not make you afraid anymore. Didn't
think about it in that way.
Yeah.
So the origins of Krampus, you know, are obviously a very fascinating blend of ancient mountain survival. It sort of blends that sort of good cop, bad cop theology, and a surprisingly sort of modern commercial boom as well in sort of more recent times, actually.
Yeah.
I think even like quite recent, and then like the past the 2010s. I think that the Krampus kind of folklore sort of became even bigger, and it sort of has found its place in European culture.
But there are two kind of pillaring points as to like the origins surrounding the idea of this creature. The first one being the pagan side of things, and that's because long before he was a like companion to a saint, being Saint Nick, Krampus-like figures were actually part of a pre-Christian Alpine pagan tradition. Most commonly was the winter solstice, where ancient people in the Alps, so Austria, Bavaria and Slovenia, actually held winter rituals to drive out the ghosts of winter.
So it's very much like Halloween in that regard.
Men would dress in animal skins and masks to mirror the wild, untamed spirits of the mountains. So you can imagine a few of them might have dressed like goats, which would have made them look like Krampus.
Yes, yeah, you can imagine some confusion. Some people that might not know, who might think, oh shit, Krampus.
Yeah.
Krampus is in my back garden.
Then we've got the Perchten, which is a closely related kind of like alternative version of Krampus, where there are like Perchten dualistic spirits, like, which basically means that some beautiful and some ugly, which are led by the goddess Perchta. If you do remember that, we did speak about it very briefly in one of our past episodes. And that's actually, if you remember, the Perchta is like an ugly, horned and hairy creature who's meant to scare away the darkness and bad luck of the previous year.
So kind of like a New Year's Eve
Mm-hmm.
demon type thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because stay tuned for a little bit more on some Perchta
Mm-hmm.
stuff in our ghostly gossip section a bit later, so make
Yep.
sure you stick around for that.
Then we've got a little bit of a Norse connection, as we do with a lot of these wintry episodes, because obviously a lot of winter traditions have come from the Norse traditions of history and that part of the world. And some folklorists link him to Norse mythology, suggesting that he's the son of Hel, and so just with a single L, so Hel, who is actually the goddess of the underworld. And so this basically insinuates that he's the prince of the underworld, essentially.
This was pretty cool in some ways.
Yeah, and that
Pretty
obviously
weird,
explains his half dead and half beast appearance.
So that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's the old Christian sort of version of Krampus, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
As Christianity sort of spread through the Alps during the Middle Ages, the church couldn't fully stomp out the sort of popular pagan devils, if you like. So they sort of rebranded them
An
to sort of suit
assimilation,
them.
if you will.
Yes, so Krampus was sort of turned into a servant of Saint Nicholas within this sort of Christian folklore, and this created a sort of perfect moral balance. So the saint rewards the good, and the beast punishes the bad. So it is kind of like God and the devil type thing,
Yeah.
all over again. Where in Christian art, Krampus is often depicted wearing heavy iron chains, like we said just previously. This isn't just for the scary sound, though.
Which is actually really scary, the sound of clanking chains.
It is. It's not very nice.
And you know who else has clanking chains? From A Christmas Carol?
Jacob Marley.
Jacob Marley.
Marley. Yes, and if you haven't seen our latest episode, which is our Christmas one, it's all about Christmas Carol and going into sort of detail about Christmas ghosts and all this stuff, so go and check that out, and all our other episodes that have come before.
Mm-hmm.
But the chains on Krampus symbolise that the devil has been bound and tamed by the church to do God's work, essentially.
Ooh.
So it is kind of like Jacob Marley in that sense, that you're forever tied to a certain task or a certain sin or a certain wrongdoing or something, like Jacob Marley was. This is more like a tie to saying I'm tied to God and I'm tied to Saint Nicholas. I'm forever sort of bound to complete this work.
And it's slightly different to the original meaning that we looked at a second ago of the chains, where it just being that he is a creature of the light who only gets to perform his thing on one side of the year, and he's that kind of fallen angel type idea. But now it's no, he is a creature from hell. He's essentially been kidnapped by the church.
Yeah.
He's been kidnapped himself.
He's like a puppet of
Maybe
the church.
that's why he kidnaps children.
He put himself in his sack.
Oi oi.
Oi, Krampus. Cramping everyone's
Steady
style.
on, mate.
Steady on, Krampus. So we want to know as well, the Krampus is quite a cool name, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting name. It's quite scary.
Mm-hmm.
So what is in the name?
What is the etymology of the name Krampus? Which is a very good question, obviously, because you don't really go around hearing that word every single day, do you?
No.
But the name Krampus most likely comes from the old High German word for Krampen, which means claw. And other theories suggest that it comes from the Bavarian word of Kramp, which is Krampn, which means something dried out, shriveled, or dead, fitting the creatures representing death of the year.
So again, it's like a European culture, and obviously most words come from some sort of previous old, really old word.
Yeah.
But it does make sense if you think you combine claw and dried out, shriveled, and dead type thing.
Yeah, claw of the dead is essentially what Krampus translates to.
Yeah.
That way.
And it is true. I mean that it does make sense in regard to his appearance.
And then we get more into the nitty gritty of the actual history of kind of a suppression actually, and the modern survival of the Krampus figure. And that's because during the Catholic Inquisition, dressing as a devil was actually a crime and punishable by death. And so the tradition only survived because villages in really, really remote areas, so high altitude, alpine valleys and stuff, completely ignored the law and carried on their festivals because it was part of their traditions, which is completely like awful.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can understand like being raised Catholic and that not necessarily being my belief now, but I can understand how like where it must have been like a Catholic majority at the time.
Yeah.
For people to dress like the devil was obviously really scary.
Yeah.
But punishable by death?
That's quite like a extreme.
That's a very, very extreme.
It's very extreme, in my opinion.
Like jump to conclusion.
Punishment.
There.
Yeah. It's worse than Krampus himself.
It is.
I suppose.
Yeah. But it makes you just as bad as Krampus, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, you're becoming the very thing he swore to destroy.
Yeah, exactly.
Bugger.
And then in the 1930s, there was the Dollfuss regime in Austria who actually banned Krampus celebrations, viewing them as a quote-unquote despicable and potentially socialist or like anti-Christian movements.
So again, sort of the Christians sort of come over and change these cultures, and then now they're expecting everyone to change their ways.
Yeah.
And viewing them as like, because of how they've interpreted it, as like you are basically imitating the devil himself.
Yeah, well, it's just trying to get people to like follow along what you believe in, isn't it?
Yep.
Which obviously isn't very like inclusive at all.
No. Everybody's
and
entitled to believe what they like.
This isn't to say that we are like anti-Christian or anything like that.
No.
We both have slight Christian beliefs. We both have slight spiritual beliefs.
Yes.
But we like to define that by ourselves. These are obviously things that have happened in the past, and the world has come a long way since then. Unfortunately, not in every aspect of this, because there's still a lot of
work to do.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And some proper like atrocities that are going on in the world right now to do with religion and other subjects.
Yeah.
But this isn't us saying like, oh, this has happened or this has happened and this is our opinion, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. We're going in with an open mind about everything.
Yeah,
so we just want to have an equal perspective
and
on
we're
everyone.
just connecting the dots between the previous history sections of our episodes to say that there was obviously a huge Christian upheaval towards like the 18th and 19th century-ish, or even before that in the 12th and 13th century.
Certainly before as well.
Where there were these huge periods where Catholicism and like Christianity kind of boomed, and that's why it's one of the largest like religions of today.
Yeah.
But obviously that's going to change certain parts of folklores and traditions in specific countries because it changes with culture and it changes with the world. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but it's just a shame when people who have had these beliefs for generations and generations, and it's in their blood, and they're in such remote areas, and it's part of their culture, where it's being like almost tainted, you know, by somebody else.
Yeah.
It's like somebody coming and putting like a Fruit Loop in your like cornflakes.
Yeah.
You know, and then being like, you should eat all of the Fruit Loops and not the cornflakes.
Just avoid all the cornflakes.
Yeah.
Don't eat those.
Yeah.
Punishable by death cornflakes. Can you imagine?
Krampus cornflakes.
Krampus cornflakes. That'd be a great kind of Christmas idea if it wasn't so like controversial, I suppose. But anyway, we digress as per usual. Krampus actually sort of became like a pop culture figure in the late 1800s through Krampus Karten, which essentially are Krampus cards, and these were postcards that were often humorous or even romantic.
A romantic Krampus.
Yeah, showing Krampus chasing women or being naughty himself.
Ooh.
Which helped soften his image before he hit the big screen in sort of like modern cinema. Even though big screen adaptations of Krampus
maybe there will be
not
Krampus
so great.
cereal. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
He's making it into the mainstream.
Yeah. But we move on to some different versions of what can be perceived as like an interpretation of Krampus within different areas of folklore. Some of these we may have touched on, some of these may not know, so we'll dive into these now for you.
So while the Alpine Krampus is the most famous version, obviously almost every European culture has like a dark companion for St. Nicholas. But they all eventually share the same goal, which is punishing the naughty.
Yep.
So their appearances and backstories kind of vary quite wildly, actually.
Yeah.
So for Germanic and Swiss ideologies, we have the wild men, which are also called the Knecht Ruprecht, which obviously isn't the correct pronunciation at all. It's spelled Knecht, with a space and then RUPRECHT. So please, if you know how to spell that, put the pronunciation down in the comments. You know what I mean when you like break it down into little like sounds.
Yes, so just let us know how to pronounce some of these, because we may not know how to pronounce a lot of these.
And we're going all across Europe with these, so this is just us not knowing any other languages.
This is frying our brain, and it's quite early.
It is,
in the morning today, so when we're recording this.
But this is perhaps the most common variation aside from Krampus himself. And this actually depicts him as a servant Rupert, who is a bearded man in brown robes or furs, but instead of horns, he carries a bag of ashes and soot, and he asks children if they can pray. If they fail, he hits them with the ash bag.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not necessarily as bad as like taking them to hell and eating them, but still hitting them, and it tests out whether they are are able to pray, or if they're able to like do a certain task, or if they're good in that regard.
Then we pop over to Switzerland, and we have, again, excuse the pronunciation, the Smutsuli, which his name literally translates to little dirty one. So take that as you will.
Sounds like we moved on from Krampus by the sounds of that name.
He has a soot-stained face, and again, dark robes, but he is the bad cop to the Swiss Sammy Klaus, which
sounds like Santa Claus to me, just even looking at
Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And he carries a broom of twigs and a sack. Again, however, he threatens to put naughty children inside of the sack and take them into the dark woods.
Oh, blimey. Yeah, most of these are all like kidnappy type things, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's very much one of these kidnapping like creatures.
Mm-hmm. Which I think, in a way, as far as like folklore goes, it kind of does make sense. If your kids are misbehaving, to be like, this creature's going to come and kidnap you. Not necessarily like eat you or kill you or anything like that, which I know a few of them do say. But if you're being kidnapped, I feel like it's more of like be appreciative of what you've got.
Yes.
You know, aside from like being naughty.
Yeah, absolutely, because it can all just be taken away forever. And obviously we have the sort of French and Alsatian versions, so like the human monsters, if you like. These versions are sort of depicted as perhaps being a bit scary, I suppose, because they were like once real men who became monsters through their own crimes.
Ooh.
So first we have
Pere
Futad, who is described or translated into being the father whipper. Hailing from France, he was originally an evil butcher who murdered 3 children.
Oh God.
And Saint Nicholas resurrected the children and forced the butcher to become his eternal servant as punishment.
Jeez.
And is depicted with a whip and a grim soot-blackened face.
Oh.
So that's quite scary.
Well, I mean, fair play to Saint Nick for like
Bro wasn't having any of that shit, was he?
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Fair play to Saint Nick for like resurrecting the children and stuff and forcing the butcher to become his like servant.
He needs it. I mean, that's pretty bad.
That's terrifying though.
And we have the one like the Alsatian one, which is someone called Hans Trapp, who is a wealthy, greedy man who allegedly sold his soul to the devil and began preying on children whilst disguised as a scarecrow.
Ooh.
And legend says that he was struck by lightning just before eating a victim, and now he returns at Christmas as kind of like a tattered, straw-covered ghost to terrify kids into being good.
That one would absolutely terrify me. I hate scarecrows.
That'd make a great film, wouldn't it?
It would.
Like a really like creepy movie.
Okay, we're doing that. We just trademarked that.
Yes, that's our idea. Please don't nick it. We're going to try and sell it along.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. So if you see the film being made and you see us, that we've made it, remember this episode, please.
Then we get more into the animal side of things, actually, with the Welsh and Icelandic traditions. So these are like less companion types to Santa, but more independent winter terrors, essentially. So in the previous episode, if you went and watched it, if you didn't go and watch it, go and watch it now, because the creature we're about to talk about, you would have already known about if you'd watched the last episode.
Yes, if you've listened to it, yes. That is obviously the Mari Lwyd.
Mm-hmm. The Mari Lwyd, who is from Wales. And while not a punisher, she is a ghostly midwinter visitor. And it's actually a real horse's skull mounted on a pole carried by a person under a white sheet. And they go door to door engaging in rhyming battles for food or ale. Or in the original folklore, the ghost horse will go around the entire house and will actually trash the place.
Yeah.
If she wins, she enters the house, which is considered both a blessing and a terrifying intrusion.
So again, it's a kind of like behave or do things right, or you'll be punished in some regard.
Then for the Icelandic Yule cat, aka, excuse the pronunciation, the Jólakötturinn. This is a giant monstrous cat that stalks the snowy countryside. It doesn't care if you are naughty or nice. It only cares if you received new clothes for Christmas. And if you were too lazy to finish your knitting or your sewing before the holiday, the Yule cat would eat you.
Wow.
Straight to the point. Wild animal, pretty much.
It's pretty much kind of like I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I kind of respect that one the most. It doesn't care if you're naughty or nice. It's like, if you didn't do your work, dinner time.
If someone's knitted, make sure your nan knits you a nice jumper. Make sure she knits them.
Yeah.
To save her from encountering this like giant cat. And then finally we move on to the Slavic sort of Czech versions of the Krampus folklore. So for the Czech Republic / Slovakia version, we have one called the Kurt or the Surt. It's C with a little accent above it and ERT. So in these regions, Saint Nicholas is seen to be accompanied by both an angel and a devil, and the devil is this Surt character. And the Surt is very similar to Krampus, so very hairy, horned and carrying chains, but he's often portrayed as more bumbling or easily tricked, adding a touch of dark comedy to the tradition.
Oh, so it's a bit like a cute one.
Kind of, I suppose.
A little bit.
And we also have the German, American, and the Pennsylvania Dutch edition of the Krampus folklore, which is the Belsnickel, which is a ragged man wearing furs and a mask, sometimes a woman's mask, and he is a trickster figure who throws nuts and candies on the floor. When the children scramble to get them, he swats their backs with his switch to remind them of the thin line between reward and punishment.
Ooh.
So, again, there is like that. Yeah, that's like some weird, creepy versions of the Krampus folklore.
Yep.
And sort of creatures that will come down to you and punish you in some regard or some way, whether it's eating you or simply just swatting you with like a bag of ash or like a
some copies of Krampus,
something.
if you will.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but talking about something quite a little bit more gruesome, in my opinion, and something that perhaps isn't necessarily associated to winter, but stuck around during the winter, I suppose. That leads us on to the Isle of Fright.
Welcome to the Isle of Fright segment of today's episode.
Hurrah.
So, if you aren't aware, me and Sam live on the Isle of Wight, which is a small island just off the southern coast of England.
Yes.
And it's actually nicknamed Ghost Island and directly translates to Island of the Supernatural.
Yes.
Which you would have found out in previous episodes.
Yes.
So go and check those out. And most of the time we try and link these stories back to the subject at hand. However, there isn't actually directly a English kind of folklore that directly translates to Krampus or like an opposition or a servant to Saint Nick.
Especially on the Isle of Wight.
However, we did manage to find the tale of a man called Michal Morey, which is one of the most famous murders on the entire Isle of Wight.
Yes, it's quite famous around the UK as well, as far as I'm aware when I was researching it. One of the most
famous murders basically in UK history.
Yeah.
And where it may not relate directly to Krampus, part of this story is heavily winter driven, hence why we have kept it for this episode today.
Yes, we wanted to leave it on like a bit of a wintry sting, if you like.
We did.
But before we get into it, we want to leave a little trigger warning. There's going to be a few of these in this episode because Krampus is quite a gruesome subject and quite punishable.
So we've gone all in for this episode with the guts and the gore.
We have wanted to end our winter episode on something quite like you say, full of blood and guts and gore. So
something quite heavy to end the year, so that when we get into the new year, it's a bit more digestible.
So our next episode is quite an interesting one, and it goes slightly off. It's still horror based, but it's a little bit different. So definitely subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you're listening on. But yeah,
those of
little
you
trigger warning for
that
you
are
guys.
sensitive, yeah.
If there's anybody that's sensitive to anything to do with like murder or blood or gore or anything that's real, like this type of thing.
This is a real life story that did actually happen.
So this is not fiction. This is real.
It is very insidious.
Yes.
And very, very aggressive and very, very gory. So this happened in 1736.
So a long time ago.
Just over, just under about 300 years ago.
Yeah.
And like we said, while Krampus is a myth, Morey was actually a real man with a terrifyingly human motivation, which is the cause for most murders and things, especially at that time: greed and rage.
Yes, indeed.
So, Morey was actually the guardian of his 14-year-old grandson, James Dove, who had recently inherited a small amount of money. Morey lured the boy into the woods and killed him with a bill hook or an axe. He dismembered the body, stuffed the parts into leather bags, and hid them in the undergrowth. He then burnt down his own cottage to destroy any evidence, which was why the area was still called Burnt House Lane. Yeah. So for those of you that want us to go and visit Burnt House Lane, let us know and we'll go.
Yes.
He was then captured in a nearby cave, tried in Winchester, and then his body was actually hung and then returned to the island to be gibbeted, or aka displayed in a cage, on a Bronze Age burial mound. He hung there for months until he was a quote-unquote an offence to the eye and nostril.
So basically he started like deteriorating and decaying and smelling not so great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, essentially this guy was a murderer, a serious murderer, did some terrible things
to his own grandson.
And he was basically tried and executed in Winchester, and then returned to the island to basically be
hung,
presented in front of everyone to say, look, here is the person that did it. So in island folklore, Morey doesn't just appear as one type of ghost, because if you didn't know, Michal Morey is quite a notorious ghost that is said to roam around the Isle of Wight, especially around the pub, the Hare and the Hounds.
I believe he was also hung on the Isle of Wight as well.
Was he? Yeah.
So he was tried in Winchester. I don't know if I split up the sentence correctly when I said it, but he was tried in Winchester, but then he was hung, and his body was displayed in the Isle of Wight.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I thought it was the other way around, but that's cool. So yeah, Michal Morey had different sort of ghost interpretations and the way that he is seen by the public, and even to this day people claim
in different ways.
He does, yeah. He's sort of seen in different ways by people around today and in the past. So the first one is the Headless Night Rider. So at Michal Morey's hump, which is the burial mound near the Hare and the Hounds pub, his ghost is said to ride a horse 3 times around the barrow at midnight, and he is often described with his head lolling to one side or completely missing, and his hands tied behind his back. So he's kind of like Headless Nick from Harry Potter. You know that character, like the ghost that sort of can tilt his head. His hands tied behind his back as well, like we say. And as he rides, he is heard to cry out his own name, Michal Morey's hump, Michal Morey's hump, across the valley, if you like, across the hills. So that's quite freaky. Imagine hearing that around the Hare and the Hounds. You're just going for a Christmas dinner and you start hearing him going mental around midnight.
And imagine seeing someone with their head coming off on the back of a horse.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
I mean, how can you ride that horse for that?
I know.
Yeah. Who bloody knows?
Yeah. Maybe it's the Mari Lwyd that he's riding.
The Mari Lwyd, there we go. So it's all a crossover. Then
we have the roadside slasher. So motorists on the Downs Road, which is the A3020, for those of you that are actually on the island, have reported a figure wearing a ragged 18th century leather leggings and jerkin outfit. He is seen standing by the road clutching a huge bloodied axe. Most terrifyingly, eyewitnesses describe him as having dark pits where his eyes once were. Yes,
because I know that it was said that like the crows sort of plucked his eyes out. Yeah, sort of plucked his eyes out. People see that.
Because he was hung there.
And he was sort of put on display. But he was, I mean, I saw something when I was researching it about these people that had seen like driving by, and they see him sort of at really like dark points at night time, and see him just standing by the road with this axe, even like in modern time, which is pretty creepy. And finally we have like sort of the electrical poltergeist, if you like, where many drivers have reported that as they pass the site of the old gibbet, their car engines and lights cut out for absolutely no reason, which is kind of weird. And once they move past the barrow, the car suddenly restarts. This energy drain is sort of a classic sign of like a heavy haunting, or the entity is said to be drawing power from the machinery.
Which does usually happen with a lot of ghosts anyway, let alone poltergeists.
Need
energy
extreme
is like
power.
they draw energy from you or from any devices that you have, so that they can then put it into them trying to manifest or show themselves or try and communicate with you in some type of way. Which I wouldn't really want this guy to be trying to communicate with me.
No.
Because he sounds like a very awful man.
He very much was an awful man.
And I realise that we don't actually mention it so far, but this tragic incident with his grandson did happen in the summer months.
Yes, it did.
And so when he was eventually like being hung on display for everybody to see, this actually happened at the Gallows, which is around the corner from the Hare and the Hounds pub that sits there now, and that went all the way into the winter months, hence why it was when you could smell him, and it was just too bad to look at because he was hung there for such a long period of time after he was deceased.
I mean, he was, like I say, he was just hanging around, obviously. But you know, he was there, and you know, especially during the winter cold, and that was probably quite a sight to see. Not very nice at all, for all the people that bore witness to that, but also a reminder of what wrongdoing, especially at the time, wrongdoing could do. It's kind of like represented that idea of, you know, something so criminal and so evil, if you like. And there are actually
some cursed artifacts that go along with this case. So there is the original 22-foot wooden beam used to hang his body is actually still one of the main roof supports in the Hare and the Hounds pub, and it's carved with the date 1737 and a notch marking where his cage was hung, which I think not only is that quite sick, but that's really, really weird. Why would you go and make a building with it afterwards?
I don't know.
The Isle of Wight isn't exactly in a lack of wood or trees.
Obviously, you also have this fake skull for years that was sit in a glass box at the Hare and the Hounds pub, which was kind of claimed to be Morey's. Modern science actually proved it to sort of belong to like a Bronze Age teenager. However, locals say that the real Morey spirit is still offended by the display, causing shenanigans within the kitchen of the pub. So, not nice.
That's not nice at all.
But
also that poor teenager who, like, I can understand them still wanting to display Morey's skull because it was such a tragic thing that he, like, not tragic, but it was such an awful thing that he did.
The tragedy of his grandson.
It's a tragedy for his grandson, but it's such an awful thing that he committed. So I can understand kind of still wanting to make an example of him and for it adding to the, like, adding to the atmosphere of the pub because it is quite creepy in there.
It's one of the most haunted places on the island,
it is,
full stop.
But
not
taking
just for
some
him,
random
but
teenager's skull from like the Bronze Age and like putting that in a case,
well,
you don't even know if it's his, that's really messed up.
It's kind of messed up in my opinion. So that is Michal Morey.
It is.
That is the tale of Michal Morey. And it's quite, I just thought it's like they haven't really done like a murder case as such.
We haven't, but if you do want more of them, then please let us know.
Let us know, because because
it is very, very fascinating to look at, and we do want to do more research into these things in the future.
We want to sort of do like dedicated episodes just to like murder cases and movie specific stuff. So if that's something you want to hear more of or see more of, then absolutely just let us know in the comments or whatever platform you're listening on.
But on the subject of messed up stories, we're dipping back into Krampus for a little more of a festive mess this time, or a merry messmas, if you will. So come with us as we head into our boot or bust.
So, as we move into our boo or bust, our story obviously is going to take place around Krampus. So, plenty of Krampus tales over the years, and plenty of people that have perhaps seen or perceived things as being Krampus. But also, if you can hear a little noise in the background, one of our neighbours in our apartment building is drilling. For some reason.
Incessantly, though.
Incessantly. It's like going on and on and on. So,
which, don't get me wrong, we're all for drilling. Go and do your DIY.
But it's been going on for a long time.
It's been going on for about an hour already.
Yeah. So
and
if
they
you
keep doing it straight. I used to do electrics and construction, so I know my way around a drill. But whoever's doing this is not doing it right, because you can hear it just going on for ages and ages.
So if you can hear something, then please just excuse the very subtle background humming or low rumble noises.
And you might have been hearing it in the previous segments. That's because it's been getting worse, and we expected it to drop off, and it hasn't just yet.
Yeah. So obviously,
is it a boo or a bust that you can hear the drilling in the background?
Is it a boo or a bust that there is a drill in the apartment?
We're going to give it a bust because it's just
because it's bloody annoying.
It is.
Bloody bust them out of the apartment.
And also on the 23rd of December.
Yeah, come on, man.
People are preparing.
That's
for
when we're
Christmas.
recording, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyways, we'll get into the story. It is, of course, a Reddit story from the No Sleep subreddit. And the story is called Krampus, so very self-explanatory. But it is by a user called Rhagar, but RHA3GAR. That's how I'd say it. But the story essentially is quite a short story, but it kind of is split into segments. Three different accounts of the sort of different things. So without further ado, we will get into it, and we want you to decide whether it's a boo or a bust at the end. Let us know in the comments.
And just before we do get into it, just like we did with our previous segment, the stories in these three different accounts are quite full of blood and gore and gruesome incidents, because they are all kind of based around different murders that have happened. If you are sensitive to these types of things, please just skip this next section, or play it at 2x speed so you can't really listen to it, or keep the podcast playing in the background and then walk off and go and do something else in a different room.
Yes, the next segment is the Silver Scream, so that'll be talking all about the movie for this week, so that should be a little bit lighter in regards, because it's fiction. So if you don't want to stick around for this part, that's absolutely fine, skip along to the next bit. But if you are going to stick around, this is the story called Krampus.
Each year on December 5th, a person in my hometown is brutally murdered. The police are at a loss. With each victim, a poetic story is left behind. Below are the stories from the past 3 years. Frederick loved to smile, for he was always glad. Warm, happy and gentle, never ever sad. But Frederick had a secret, one he only knew. This man loved to strangle children, he turned them cold and blue. The townsfolk never found them, for he was very smart. Frederick took their corpses and pulled them all apart. It couldn't be young Frederick, everyone would say. He is a man of God, we always see him pray. The cold night came, and Frederick rested his head, but soon he heard scratching underneath his bed. Frederick trembled as he looked, oil lamp in hand, on his bedroom floor. The demon had a plan. Away with you, beast. The night is dark and long. You have no business here, for I have done no wrong. Krampus only laughed as he shook his rusty chain. He hung Frederick by the neck until he writhed in pain. The links constricted, digging into skin. Frederick cried out, paying for his sin. He begged and pleaded until his final breath. With a beautiful snap, Frederick bled to death. Krampus hung him out to dry, and all the townsfolk began to cry. But not the children, for now their souls were free. Under Frederick's body, the phantoms danced with glee.
So that is the first story. I think we'll go between each and ask if it's a boo or a bust.
We will.
So that's they're all poems, I suppose.
They are.
So that's quite an interesting different take on the boo or the bust that we've done in the past. But obviously very gruesome. But I don't know, because to me, this kind of links to a different type of folklore about like, punishing a man, whereas like Krampus is more kind of like, from what we've read, is more like children based, if that makes sense. So like punish children, but doesn't take away that he may do that type of thing to
This does seem, it seems more like the kind of German one, where it's taking like people that have done bad things and like punishing them for it, which is obviously completely valid. But I don't know, I'd say it's a boo.
I'd say it's a boo in the context of the poem, absolutely. So we'll move on to the second little poem now. So let us know in the comments. There's 3 of them. Poem 1, 2 or 3, boo or bust. So this is number 2. Greta loved herself more than she could bear. She never had enough and could never ever share. Want was never more, it was only need. Her envy grew and grew, and with it came her greed. Greta needed more, but money wasn't flush. So she stole from her family, it gave her quite the rush. It is not enough, to herself she would say. I must have it all, there is no other way. Into her grandparents' home, Greta crept inside. They had many treasures, jewellery and gemstones pied. But when she looked about, wealth she did not find, only ancient Krampus with something on his mind. Greta shrieked and trembled, staring at his claws. She knew there'd be no mercy from this evil Santa Claus. You shall have the riches, Krampus said with grin, and he gave them to her after peeling off her skin.
Ooh.
These are good poems.
They are really good
poems.
I like them.
In like a non-weird, in a
as
weird
sadistic
way.
As that is.
But these are all, remember, from what this person is saying, accounts from the people over the past 3 years from when this subreddit was written, that have passed away, and these are poems that have been left with the victims. So that's kind of weird, because it happens on the Krampusnacht, the night of celebrating the Krampus character, and in this person's town these people just mysteriously die. So again, that's kind of again that kind of idea of greed and being punished for greed and wanting to sort of like nick the gemstones and the jewellery from families. So it's kind of again that it links very much, and it's a boo in that regard, that it's very real to what Krampus would do and punish people for being greedy and for stealing and for being bad. But yeah, and the only thing that gets me is like peeling off her skin. I know, like that's gruesome, but yeah, really it isn't gruesome. Something that we read that Krampus actually does. It isn't, no. So I don't know, would you say it's a boo or a bust, this one? I think it's a boo, just because I think the peeling of the skin, I can imagine it. Like the poem set up the story so well that it's so visually like stimulating. It is. Yeah. I think they're really, really good. These are cool poems. Yeah. If they're made up, they're really, really cool. If they're made up, they are. If they're real, then no. They're not cool. They're not. They're cool, well written, really but not messed cool. Up. But these people should be punished for their sins, maybe just not in this way. Yes. Which leads us on to the third and final story for this segment. Yep. So here we go. Herman was a doctor, for that's what he would say. And every single patient they would have to pay. He cut and pulled and burned, and after he was done, for more he always yearned. This surgeon was a butcher, who had a taste for swine. With their bleeding flesh, he'd pair a fine red wine. The hunger took him, body, mind and soul, yet this evil, it never took its toll. Herman was alone, in his chair he sat. All this human meat made him very fat. He drifted off to slumber and began to snore, until an angry Krampus bursted through the door. Herman could not move. He wet himself in fright. Krampus licked his lips and let out a squeal of delight. First he gouged his eyes, and Herman could not see. Then Krampus filleted his tongue. It was tender as could be. Christmas is joyous, full of love and cheer, but you must remember the one that we all fear.
So be kind to one another, show love and heed this text, or Krampus will find you, and you certainly will be next.
It finishes off saying the police are seeking any information that may help bring the killer to justice. As of this morning, 3 more bodies have been found in a neighbouring village. So there we go.
Ooh.
That was a good last one. That little last line. You know, be kind to one another, show love and heed this text, or Krampus will find you and you'll certainly be next. It's kind of like one of those like old nursery riddles. Like,
it is.
rhyme
It's
things.
like a folk tale.
It's like an old sort of like folk tale that's designed to scare you. Again, I think they're all boos. In my opinion.
I think they're all boos. Yeah. And the moral of the story is, be nice to one another, and be good. But yeah, I think those are all boos as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Interesting story. So let us know if you think they're a boo or a bust. Yeah, that was the story slash selection of poems titled Krampus.
And to get into some more Christmassy Krampus tales, let's head into our Silver Scream. Going in swiftly to our Silver Scream section, as we usually do, we're going to give you guys a movie quote, and you have to guess which film we are talking about today. But seeing as you made it this far in the episode so far, you should have a pretty good understanding of what film we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, and that is Elf. No, I'm joking. So we'll leave you a little movie quote, and let us know in the comments if you got it right. But I mean, this is probably one of the most like easy ones to get right, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
From the title of the episode slash the folklore we're talking about, it's very self-explanatory, but we'll still give you the quote.
Yes.
So the quote reads as follows: "As
he had for thousands of years, he came not to reward, but to punish, not to give, but to take."
Ooh, so there we go. That is a quote from the 2015 adaptation of the folklore Krampus, titled Krampus.
So directed by Michael Dougherty, the 2015 film Krampus is a darkly imaginative horror comedy that strips away the saccharine polish of the holidays to reveal the terrifying folklore lurking in the shadows. It follows a fractured suburban family whose loss of Christmas spirit inadvertently summons a prehistoric demonic entity and his legion of twisted toys to let out festive yet fatal punishment.
So it's quite a controversial film in the sense that it's like debatable in regards to sort of controversy, in the sense that it's whether it's good or not. I mean, it's like fun, I suppose, is sort of the best kind of, I don't know, it's sort of the best accolade, I suppose, that it can be given. But it's not a great film in regards to story, but it's fun, and it's quite a good version of Krampus in my opinion.
I think it's one of those films where if you go into it and you think, oh, because this is a horror comedy, it's going to be like really scary, that you may be disappointed. But if you go into it and you focus more on the comedy aspect, then you won't be as disappointed.
Yeah. As for every single Silver Scream, we go through the plot summary for you, which we will do, but we will leave out the end in case we spoil it for you, so we don't want to do that, because it's worth watching just for like the fun of it, I suppose. But
just
it's
for the lols.
It's kind of like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But
if you want to bring some cheer to yourself, maybe go and watch this.
Yeah, why not, I suppose.
But the plot goes as follows. During a dysfunctional family gathering on Christmas Eve, young Max loses his holiday spirit and tears up his letter to Santa, inadvertently summoning an ancient demonic force. A massive blizzard cuts off the town's power and heat, trapping the family in their home as a strange predatory creature begins picking them off one by one. The grandmother, Omi, reveals that the entity is Krampus, the shadow of St. Nicholas, who has come to punish the family for losing their hope and kindness. The family situation grows increasingly surreal and horrific as they are attacked by demonic toys, monstrous gingerbread men, and a giant jack-in-the-box, which I think is like probably the most, not necessarily scary, but the most like intimidating factor would be the jack-in-the-box
aside
for
from
me
Krampus,
personally. Then Uncle Howard and Max's father, Tom, attempt to find missing family members in the snow, only to realise that the entire neighbourhood has been abandoned and surrounded by a supernatural abyss. One by one, the family members are dragged into the underworld by Krampus's masked elves and the Yule goat-like demon himself. But that's where we're going to leave it, because there's obviously a climax and the ending, which we aren't going to tell you about, just in case you want to go and give this little tale a watch.
Odd movie, like some sort of look, if you like.
A wintry watch.
A wintry watch. So, we'll go into a little bit of like the influence and perhaps a perceived legacy of the film, if you like. There was kind of like a Krampus boom, if you like, which we kind of spoke about earlier in the episode. So before the movie, Krampus was largely like kind of like a niche alpine tradition, unknown to sort of the general public in the US and the UK, because it sort of like lost its way, I suppose, in the years. But following the film's success, Krampusnacht events, themed bars and merchandise exploded into popularity, turning a localized Austrian folk figure into a worldwide anti-Santa icon. So, yeah, the film kind of helped bring light to this piece of folklore, and then a lot of people started speaking about Krampus, which is kind of interesting. So it did good in that regard. So it's a really cool piece of folklore, especially around sort of the winter Christmas times.
I think it is definitely good in the way of, I think a lot of like European folklore tends to go amiss unless it's like vampires or werewolves or something.
It does, unless you're like really into that stuff. It kind of
I think
ends
everything
up
else
drifting
seems
away,
to like slip under the radar, especially in like Western media. So it was really good in the way of that it brought like a light onto this like kind of particularly notable figure for this time of year. And obviously there was a gap in the market for like Christmas horror, so even though it wasn't done particularly in the best way, the thought goofy, and the concept was there.
Yeah, it was there, and it still allowed Krampus to sort of become more of like a, you know, his way into sort of still kind of a niche pop culture, but he's still more of an icon now, if that makes sense.
However, one of the things that was kind of done quite well in the film was the creature's actual design. And that's because the designs were actually handled by the Weta workshop, who actually, funnily enough, was the team who worked behind the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But they intentionally avoided using CGI for the monsters, creating like massive practical puppets and suits. And so the masked version of Krampus, where he's wearing like a frozen, dead-eyed human face as a mask, has actually become the most definitive visual reference for the character in modern media.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see Krampus as that kind of now. He's kind of like a dead version of Santa Claus, but with horns and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of creepy. In that regard. So it's kind of cool, I suppose. Yeah.
And like we just said, there was a gap in that side of the market for like Christmas horror, wasn't there?
There was, yeah, and that's where like kind of it brought back sort of that holiday horror. Esque type of movie subgenre. So the movie is sort of credited with reviving the Christmas horror subgenre, like we say, and it proved that audiences were kind of hungry for films that balance genuine scares with family dynamics, because that family dynamic is all what makes up, like, it's one of the core Christmas movie tropes, leading to a wave of similar films like Violent Night, and I think that's the one with David Harbour. And The Mean One, which is like a really crappy version of The Grinch, which was done by the same people, I think, who did Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It was either, it was, and the guy who acts as the Grinch was the guy who plays Art the Clown, I think, in Terrifier. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it worked, but it's like hot garbage. And
obviously it's just an acquired taste.
Well, I don't think you have taste. If you like The Mean One, then please switch off the podcast. No, I'm joking. Please stick around, because I'd like to know why you like it, if that is the case.
Despite The Mean One not being obviously a very great film and kind of in the same category as Krampus, where it has certain kind of aspects that do really go well, and then other aspects which are like the more kind of story orientated versions, and I think particularly the acting for quite a few of the scenes aren't like carried out to the best extent that they could be.
Great.
However, that is definitely not the case for films like Gremlins or Poltergeist, which were obviously like 1980s kind of classics, which I know Poltergeist isn't obviously a Christmas film, but Gremlins is, but they do both have that huge family trope going on.
Yes. That is interesting as well, actually. You can see the crossovers.
You can see the crossovers, especially when it's like
Poltergeist and Gremlins and stuff.
When you're picking it apart, this is what I mean. There are certain aspects of the film where you're like, oh, that's all right, actually. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
But then it's when you're actually watching it and everything comes together, it's just a little bit like hit or miss.
Yeah.
As to what you're paying attention to.
For sure.
But to each their own.
Each their own, I suppose. The film's legacy lies in its specific sort of moral message. Because it kind of does have a moral message, I suppose, over other slashers, and where like victims would die for like no reason. Often it's kind of like they're just there to die, to be like another kill for the killer. But Krampus sort of established the idea that the monster is a mirror, and he only appears when the spirit of the community or family is broken, making him a psychological boogeyman as much as like a physical one. So he does adhere to the folklore quite nicely.
Yeah.
And that is, I suppose, what makes the film not awful, because it kind of it makes sense, and it makes Krampus make sense.
Yeah. I think in that particular aspect as well, that's where the story side of things, like it obviously it had an intention. I just don't think it was carried out in the best way it could have been, you know? Like a lot of kind of festive flicks have that like moral of the story behind them. Obviously the Grinch is about like not excluding people and like inclusivity and that type of thing.
The Grinch is all about racism.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
And then you've also just got films like kind of Gremlins, which is about like following rules and kind of like doing as you're told. Like there's little morals under all of these stories, which are particularly prevalent not only in like traditional fairy tales, but also in Christmas tales as well. Yeah. Because it's always about like knowing when to ask for help, or not excluding people, or being inclusive, or being happy, not being greedy in like A Christmas Carol. Yeah. All of these different types of things about just being a good person, which is obviously like tried to be conveyed in this film. Yeah.
Obviously not to the same degree, but it is
standard.
There is an element of it there, and that is the main thing. We won't go into the ending as such, but there is just this ending actually in the film,
which I think is actually the coolest bit, is the ending of the film.
It is very much so. I thought the ending was pretty good, actually. It's quite notorious for becoming like an all-time great horror ending. Obviously we won't say what it is, but if you watch the film you might understand, because it's kind of is quite uneasy. It is. The ending, I remember watching it and thinking, oh, that's quite an interesting way to end the film. So definitely go and check out the film anyway. Yeah. Just for the ending. It
is kind of like for those of you that have just seen the newest episode of Stranger Things. Yeah. We're not going to go into it now, but if you have seen episode 4, and you're just like us and you're like in high anticipation waiting for episode 5, the incident that occurs in episode 4 where it completely kind of catches you off guard, that's the same like type of ending that's in this film. Obviously not to such a high degree, because it's not Stranger Things, it's not like a world trending
Stranger Things is elite
series, and probably one of the most expensive film series ever.
I'd probably say so.
Or TV series ever. But it's the same kind of like completely catches you off guard, but makes sense, I suppose, to all the like clues that they've been dropping throughout everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so again, like I said, it's got its perks and it's got its cons. But let's get a little bit more into the kind of like
some trivia and behind the scenes.
A little bit more of the trivia and the BTS behind it all.
So first little point we got here in regards to like sort of the design and direction of the film. Director Michael Dougherty actually first sketched his vision for Krampus on a cocktail napkin while at a bar with his co-writers. This rough drawing evolved into the 3D models and final creature seen in the film. So while it's not like, whoa, that is kind of like a, you know, little ideas can spark up anywhere, even in a cocktail bar, if you like. So that's quite interesting.
That is really, really interesting. I feel like there's been quite a lot of movies that have had like their particularly notable like characters or storyline points written on like napkins or like in the back of like tiny little notebooks or
like random little little
but
pieces
those are
of
like
paper.
those are always the best like spurts of creativity.
Yeah.
Even for me,
using whatever to try and make something.
Yeah. For Read Between the Lines, which is like the latest like horror short that I made back in March, I actually wrote the initial idea on the back of a receipt because I was at work and I didn't have anywhere else to write it. So I wrote it on the back of I started writing it when I was at work, and then I went to the cinema after work. So I wrote it down on the back of my waiter's pad when I was at work, and then I continued it on the receipt for my Odeon ticket when I went to the cinema afterwards, and I still got them somewhere in a box.
That's cool. You should find those and treasure those.
Yeah, obviously I'm not saying that I'm like Christopher Nolan and I've got like these huge films coming out or anything.
No, you are.
But I'm just saying these little ideas that really like mark what you want to do, like come to you in like the greatest little moments that you don't expect.
They do.
Yeah,
they 100% do.
Yeah, so make sure that you write down all your ideas. That's the moral of that story.
Yeah.
However, for a little bit more trivia, the actual like face of Krampus in the movie obviously isn't his real face. It's actually a frozen, dead-eyed mask of an old man, which is actually designed to look like a twisted, decaying version of Saint Nicholas, which obviously is just meant to further like engage the idea that he's actually the shadow of Saint Nick. So it's not even like it's like a normal kind of Christmas mask or like a Santa mask or anything like that. Like they purposely made it look like that to show that he's like the messed up version, not to be like fooled with, pretty much.
Yeah. You also have the connection to Michael Dougherty's probably most famous horror movie, which is Trick or Treat, which is much more notorious for sure. It's more iconic, absolutely. There's sort of several Easter eggs of that actually in Krampus. The opening scene in the house actually features a TV playing Season's Greetings, which is his 1996 short film that first introduced the character Sam, which is in Trick or Treat. So that's kind of cool, little Easter egg for his own work. It's kind of cool when filmmakers do that. So that's another little piece of info there that you might find interesting.
And then getting more into the practical effects side of things, because that was where the film did pull through, in my opinion. But almost every monster in the film, so the teddy bear, the Jack-in-the-Box, the dark elves, as we said before, were all like puppeted or actually animatronics, and that's because Dougherty wanted the actors to be genuinely afraid, so he kept the puppets hidden in tents until the cameras were actually ready to roll, which I think directing wise is actually really smart. There's no way of getting a reaction better than a raw reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many films that work so much better with just getting raw reactions from people. But yeah, there's also that the actor inside the Krampus suit, who's Luke Hawker, was wearing a costume that weighed half his body weight, so pretty heavy. So you had to use arm and leg extensions to reach the character's 7-foot height, and could only see through a tiny camera hidden inside the mask. So
that must have been really claustrophobic.
That'd be very claustrophobic, and probably, yeah, like I say, even more so with like the really, really heavy costume that was attached to him there.
And although the majority of the creatures were actually like practical effects, or they were puppets or animatronics, the gingerbread men in the film were actually the only creatures who were primarily created through CGI. And they were still done by the animators at Weta Digital, but they were actually given one specific instruction for their movement by the director, which was to quote unquote make them act like little arseholes.
That's quite cool.
Which is really like funny, and it makes a lot of sense, I suppose, for how they
there's quite a lot of
go about their business.
You can get a lot of
film.
stuff out of being, telling someone to like make little arseholes. I suppose not in that regard, not literally, but metaphorically, little arseholes. Make someone act like it is. There's so many ideas that can come out of that, and it's so self-explanatory that it's quite an easy instruction, I suppose.
But something that wasn't so easy was the film was actually shot in like the middle of summer in New Zealand, actually, as well as across the spring of 2015, despite the freezing, like blizzard heavy atmosphere outside. Yeah,
so the film was obviously supposed to be set
in the winter.
But it's kind of like, it sounds like a Halloween thing where it was filmed in the spring. but it's supposed to be set in the autumn.
Yeah, Halloween is in the film, not the season.
Yeah, the film Halloween by John Carpenter.
If you want to know more about that, go and watch our Halloween episode.
Which is episode 5 of the Bad Boo podcast, so make sure you go and check that out. The sort of chaotic Black Friday opening sequence was filmed in a real sort of hardware store in New Zealand as well. So that was quite cool. So it's kind of, again, realistic, adding to sort of the Black Friday chaos that obviously comes before Christmas. So in some ways that's quite a good opening scene because it kind of sets up that chaos and you know what Christmas can sort of be seen as being in that regard. So like quite chaotic and mad in many regards.
Then for the animated sequence, which is like telling Omi's backstory, so the grandmother, for those of you that didn't hear the first bit, they were actually designed to look like a like disturbed version of the classic Rankin like base like stop motion specials, so like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, for example. And that's because the animators were actually told to keep it imperfect, to make it as like real and handcrafted by an old European artist as possible, to be even closer to the actual original folklore stories themselves.
I mean that's pretty cool in my opinion. So kind of using those animation styles and not really making them like perfect kind of again adds to that disturbing kind of past / presentation of horror, I suppose, in that kind of a Christmassy movie.
Yeah, it is a really good horror technique actually, is to make things look imperfect, because it automatically triggers the human response to want to fix things.
Yeah, because you can't.
So it creates,
makes you uneasy.
Yeah, it creates unease within people's brains when they see something that looks imperfect.
Yeah.
Because they know that something's wrong.
Yeah.
So it is like quite smart in that way, because it's like a little subliminal message that a lot of horror directors do actually.
So there's quite a few like little hidden gems in the film, I suppose, if you like. But you know, do go and watch it because it's worth it, I think. If you just want something that's a bit lighter, don't go into it expecting like Alien or something like that, like that kind of quality.
No.
But it is still nonetheless an interesting one, and if you're interested in your folklore and Krampus, you'll probably enjoy it, because it does adhere to a lot of what the folklore is about. But as we do, what is a movie without its soundtrack? And especially a kind of a festive-esque movie.
Boring as hell, that's what it is.
It can certainly be. So that moves us very nicely into our not-so-merry Shivering Soundtracks. So, the soundtrack for Krampus 2015 was composed by Mr. Douglas Pipes. Quite a good name for a music composer, actually.
It is, yeah.
Who previously worked with director Michael Dougherty on the cult classic Trick or Treat. Pipes treated the movie as sort of a dark operetta, using music to transition the film from a domestic comedy into a gothic nightmare. So it's quite interesting. It sort of uses comedy, light-hearted music, and then changes it quite quickly into something more gothic and more like freaky, I suppose, in that regard.
Yeah. And speaking about the change that Mr. Pipes actually tried to accomplish through the soundtrack, the primary goal was to take familiar holiday sounds and actually like quote unquote break them. So he used traditional instruments like sleigh bells and celesta and chimes, and actually played them in minor keys or with aggressive dissonant rhythms to create a sense of impending doom. And this was like kind of like especially done throughout like the main theme for the demon, because it's really heavy on like low brass and like thunderous percussion, and that's because he really wanted the music to feel like ancient and heavy, as if like the mountain itself was like moving towards the house.
That's very, again, it's interesting because it's using all like the Christmas instrumentation tropes like sleigh bells and celestas and chimes, but then instead of like we're all used to hearing those instruments in sort of like a major key and something that sounds nice and soft and Christmassy, but Mr. Pipes has changed it into something more minor and dissonant and thunderous and low, because he wants like that kind of idea of impending doom. from Krampus himself.
Which is really smart when people take these like kind of cutesy, merry things and like flip them on their heads.
It's a good technique. It's
yeah.
used quite heavily, actually.
Which the score actually had kind of one primary like reference, which was actually from like the clockwork precision of Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, which obviously is like a Christmas classic, isn't it?
It is. It's a very famous piece of music.
Yeah, obviously you can go and see it all year round, but it's like a very wintry, whimsical piece of music and ballet.
Yep.
But it actually replaces the whimsical magic with a really mechanical, like stalking dread, like especially during the scenes that involve like the monstrous toys that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So again, it's using like it's recycling existing music and turning it kind of into like recontextualizing it into a different kind of scene. Pipes also use like very unique instruments and sounds as well. So you'll have like haunted children's choir. However, instead of like singing angelic hymns, they sort of provide a more eerie sort of wordless chants that sound like the elves are whispering in the shadows. So it's kind of not like beautiful and hymn-like. It's all like chant-like and whispering and stuff, which is again it's creepy, and it adds that sort of mystery and that element of horror and surprise. And
definitely, children are always creepy.
Yeah,
especially when they're singing.
Especially in the context of a horror movie, it's a really good technique to use. But Pipes also used a music box motif throughout the film, where like obviously in horror, music boxes often represent childhood innocence. So if you've heard the Nosferatu soundtrack, I always go back to it because it's one of my favourite films. The new one, the soundtrack at the very, very opening of the film uses a music box to use like the main theme, which actually goes throughout the whole film, but it changes into the orchestra and whatnot. But as this film progresses, the music box theme becomes distorted and slowed down and represents the death of Max's childhood belief.
Ooh.
So it's an interesting take, and because it's all about like children and utilising that kind of thing, it's interesting. It's very
Again,
nice.
though, this is why it's so important to have music in horror films, because it perfectly conveys. It's a subliminal way of conveying like the point of the story that you're trying to make at that time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So like when they're talking about like the death of like his childhood belief, because obviously like Santa's not there and Krampus is. Not only are you visually seeing that, but it makes you feel like, oh, this is being stripped away from him.
Yeah.
When you hear it as well.
Yeah.
Which makes it so much more like kind of personable when you're watching the film.
It does. It does indeed.
Then we actually go on to like the kind of like the Krampus Carol of the Bells. That's because the most famous musical moment in the end is actually the end credits track for the film. And that's because it's a dark orchestral kind of rock cover of the infamous Carol of the Bells. It captures a really like chaotic, high energy celebration of like the creatures after they've successfully like taken the family.
Which we won't give too much away, but that is kind of what they do. But it's an interesting adaptation. It's an interesting way of changing around the traditional Carol of the Bells, which is such a iconic piece of Christmas music, like traditional Christmas music.
Yeah. And then, like they did with the kind of realistic animations for Omi's backstory, they actually weaved in snippets of traditional German carols, but they're often played by like a solo weeping violin to really emphasize her loneliness and the tragedy of her past encounter with Krampus.
Interesting.
To like further tie in with the stories of her past and stuff.
That's what I mean. It's using different instruments to sort of change up existing things again. Yeah. So it kind of recontextualizes and reinterprets old pieces of music into something that is in a different context for what's going on in the film. So it's quite interesting. It's an interesting way of using the music, for sure. But Michael Dougherty as a director is very sound sensitive, quote unquote. He worked with Pipes to ensure that the music didn't just jump scare the audience, but instead built like a wall of sound that made the blizzard outside the house feel like a living, breathing character in itself. So it's quite interesting when the music tries like personifying things that aren't people, especially when the music sort of becomes a character in itself in some regards. So that's quite interesting.
Remember your shampoo, kids?
Yes.
From English class. Did you have shampoo?
Shampoo?
Yeah.
Well, I use shampoo.
In English class, were you ever taught what shampoo was?
No.
It was like an acronym because you said personification.
Yeah.
The music.
Oh yes, like the different
Did
things.
you have that? Because I know there were different ones.
Yeah, but it wasn't shampoo, but we had a similar one, but I can't remember what it was.
What was your one?
I can't remember.
Mine was shampoo, but it had 2 S's. Oh no, it was only 1 S.
Shampoo.
It was simile, hyperbole, alliteration, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, and I can't remember the last one.
The last O. If you know the shampoo acronym, please let us know what the last O stands for, because we want to know.
Oxymoron. There you go.
Don't let us know, because we now know.
Let us know what you had in your English classes.
Yeah, was it shampoo or conditioner? I had shower gel as mine. But anyway, in one of the most tense scenes in the film, a slowed down instrumental version of Silent Night plays. So the famous Silent Night. There you go. Jodie was actually the one that did it on the soundtrack, as you can hear. She's very good at singing our episodes, isn't she? She sort of goes on to sort of more of a little spree of singing. But the silence in the song is actually used to highlight the fact that the family is now completely isolated from the rest of the world.
Which, again,
because of the blizzard,
is the point of carrying the story through the music.
It's very, very interesting.
It's so important.
So the music's a very great element. The creature design is a very good element, and sort of the Krampus folklore is a very good element of the film. But
the rest of it falls just a tiny bit
flat. A little bit flat. So it's not necessarily one of the best silver screens that we have talked about on the podcast as to up to this date. But it is worth it. It's contextual in regards to the folklore, but it's worth a watch because it's fun and it's just something to, if you want something like Christmassy, if you're still feeling the Christmas spirit after Christmas, then give it a little watch and let us know. Yeah. Let us know if you like it or not.
And if you do go and watch it, then make sure you leave a comment letting us know what you think about it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we can ironically have a little gossip about it.
Yes.
Which actually is going to take us into our ghostly gossip section for today. So, as we mentioned in the earlier part of the podcast, and actually in the last episode, if you haven't gone and watched it yet, please go over and watch it. It's the Christmas Carol episode, and it's bloody amazing.
Bloody brilliant.
It's bloody brill.
Oh, yes.
So definitely go and watch that, because for this ghostly gossip section, we are going to be learning more about the Frau Perchter, which we did briefly mention earlier.
We did indeed. But before we get into this section as well, we'd also like to give a little trigger warning for anyone who might be sensitive to gore again, because there's kind of, although whether it's true or false, whether the Frau Perchter is real, there is still elements of some quite extreme violence, I suppose, in regards to the folklore. So, again, skip ahead to our next section, which is the spooky spotlight. But if not, then obviously just, like we say, just stick around and see it through.
Tag along while we go dashing through the snow in a one-horsed open Perchter.
Yeah. We're losing our minds.
Yes, we are. We actually had already lost them, but that's why you guys are here, right?
So if you guys know where it is, then please comment below.
Anyways, basically, if Krampus is like the quote-unquote shadow of Saint Nick, then the Frau Perchter is essentially the quote-unquote like iron-nosed queen of winter. And that's because while Krampus handles the children, specifically on December the 5th, Perchter actually reigns over the final night of holiday season, which is January the 6th, aka the Epiphany.
So she is one of the most complex figures in all folklore, because she is a dual-faced goddess, half beautiful guardian and a half horrific executioner. Ooh. So she's a bit of both, if you like. So the two faces, what are they? So we have the Schon Perchten, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, which is the beautiful side. So in her bright form, she appears as a tall, radiant woman in white robes, often called the White Lady. She represents the purity of snow and the promise of the coming of spring.
Oh, Oh, that's nice.
And the other side of the face is the Shivering. So sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong too. Which is the ugly side of her face. So in her dark form, she is a gnarled hag with matted hair, tattered clothes, and a face made of iron.
What did you call me?
What did you just say? Most famously, she is often described as having a large splayed goose foot, a mark of her shape-shifting otherworldly nature.
That's definitely not me, because my feet are tiny.
Yes, you have tiny. They're not goose feet.
No.
They're chicken feet.
Lovely, thank you.
I'm just kidding. That
he
is a
has
prank.
eagle feet, by the way.
Yep, that's very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
However, getting back to the Perchta, as you may have remembered from our previous episode, the Perchta is actually the ultimate stickler for household discipline, and that's because on the 12th night she enters homes to inspect two things. One is that women and girls were required to have all of their wool and flax for the year spun by this date, and if she finds an unspun spindle, try saying that 10 times fast, she would be furious.
Boy.
2, families must eat a traditional meal of fish and gruel, or like porridge, and if they had anything luxurious instead, they would have violated the holiday taboo. And so if you were to fail her inspection, so the Perchta doesn't just switch you like Krampus does, so like taking your kids and like swapping you out for a little Krampus gremlin, but instead she takes a very sharp knife hidden in her skirts and actually slits your belly open while you sleep. She then removes your internal organs and stuffs the cavity with straw and jagged rocks before sewing you back up again.
Again, like I said in the last episode that we did, it kind of reminds me of Midsummer.
Yeah.
And that is freaky.
Yeah.
That's a big punishment.
It is a big punishment.
It's kind of like, right, it's not like no PlayStation.
So if you're
for a
eating
few
some
days.
stuffed
It's kind of
turkey,
like,
you're going to be
off with your
stuffed like a
organs.
turkey.
Yeah. So there's no point because it all come out again. in the
Yeah.
end. But Perchta is the leader of a specific branch of the Wild Hunt, which is actually another piece of folklore we spoke about in the last episode, where her procession is made up of the Heimchen, which are the spirits of unbaptized children and those who died in infancy. So she's kind of like a leader of like a group.
Yeah,
that
like the
likes-
leader of the like forgotten.
Yeah, forgotten people.
Yeah.
Or like the spirits, like say, of children who were not baptized, for example. And in some stories, she's a gentle protector who leads these lost children to a peaceful afterlife. Where in others, the children follow her in a ghostly weeping line, carrying pitchers filled with their mother's tears.
Oh.
And so now we see Welcome to Derry.
Yeah.
I won't give too much away, but a lot of children are all like floating behind Pennywise.
Yeah.
And as soon as I read that, it kind of reminded me of that.
It
for some
reminded me
reason.
of the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. If you haven't seen Welcome to Derry,
Maybe Pennywise
make sure you go and see
is
it.
based off of the Frau Perchta.
Maybe. It wouldn't surprise me. Please go and watch
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Derry, though. It's really good.
However, where these might be, or not even might be, where these are very harsh things that could happen, obviously to try and avoid these visits from like the belly slitter, families would actually perform specific rituals to stop her from coming. The first one was called the Perchta Milch, which is actually a special porridge that was left out on the table as an offering for her and her spirit followers. Then the second one was called the Perchtenlauf. So just like Krampus runs that the men in the Alps like kind of still hold, there would also be Perchta runs, and they would wear massive, heavy masks, some beautiful with mirrors and ribbons, and some ugly with tusks. And they would ring loud bells to scare away actual cold and evil spirits of the winter.
Again, there's so many crossovers to like the idea of Halloween, isn't there? And,
Yeah.
all that kind of those kind of festivals and those kind of celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is the Frau Perchta in a kind of nutshell. So again, we'll leave the link in the description. We'll leave the link in the description to a lot of these things today. So make sure you go and
Or should we say that's the Frau Perchta tied up in a bow for you?
tied up in a nice Christmas bow. So make sure you go into the description and have another look for yourselves. And if you're interested in seeing a bit more about Frau Perchta and whatnot, then is there in the description for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the subject of offerings, here are some offerings from us to keep you off our backs for some festive Christmas horror movies, if you like, for the season in our spooky spotlight.
So, for our spooky spotlight, as we just gave you a little clue, we're going to give you some film recommendations. These aren't films that we may necessarily think are good. They are just recommendations based on the festive horror season. And so, make of these whatever you want. Obviously, you don't have to go and watch them. We're not saying they're good. We're not saying they're bad. But if you want something that's a little bit darker than your average Miss Kermit and Miss Kermit that's a little bit darker than your Mr. Kermit and Miss Piggy in a Victorian England trying to get round at Scrooge for a turkey, then maybe give some of these a go, because you never know, you might enjoy them, you might hate them. Either way, let us know what you think in the comments afterwards. So the first one that we've got is A Christmas Tale from 2010, and it's actually a Finnish film, which is quote-unquote the gold standard for Christmas folklore, but it reimagines the real Santa Claus not as a jolly man, but as a giant, horned, ancient being trapped in a mountain of ice. It's quite dark, but it is like dryly funny, but the visuals in it are actually like quite stunning.
Yeah, I mean, these are like kind of, I always find with like European movies, they're really interesting, especially when it comes to folklore, because they kind of, I think they
have
such
more like
knowledge, don't they?
Yeah,
and it's like passion, instead of like, people trying to make it from different countries that may not know exactly what that culture is all around and all about. Secondly, we have A Christmas Horror Story, which is from 2015, which is an anthology film that features several interwoven stories, including a zombie outbreak at the North Pole and a brutal bloody showdown between Krampus and Santa Claus.
Ooh.
I haven't seen it, but it sounds a bit odd.
It does.
It sounds a bit silly. But if any of you have seen The Christmas Horror Story, let us know what you think about it. It sounds a bit like cheesy, but it sounds a bit strange. In the zombie outbreak at the North Pole, I don't know whether it means like Santa and his elves, or literally whether it's like at the North Pole and the ice, because that would be kind of a cool setting for a zombie outbreak. And
on to another cheesy film. We then have The Mean One from 2022. It's a horror parody of The Grinch, as we said earlier. It is a very low budget film, kind of a violent like slasher, I guess, where a green-skinned monster terrorizes a mountainous town. However, as we said, that's
Wouldn't
not
recommend
our,
it.
It's not our
Wouldn't recommend
go-to.
No, it's a bit stupid.
Yeah, there are better ones to go and experiment with.
Absolutely, including these
older
slasher
ones.
classics that we've gathered, which are probably a lot more
up the street
and more high quality.
Decent
Absolutely.
horror festive flicks.
So first of all, we have Black Christmas, which is from 1974, which is one of the most influential horror movies actually ever made, and it predates Halloween, the film, and it follows a group of sorority sisters being stalked by a mysterious caller during the Christmas break, and it is incredibly tense and bleak.
So kind of like a little festive
very notorious.
scream for you, if you would.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the golden classics, if that makes sense, and it's set at Christmas, so it's definitely one to watch.
Then we've got the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, but this is the original 1984 version, but it's actually the most controversial Christmas horror movie ever, and that's because it features a man suffering from childhood trauma who actually snaps and goes on a killing spree dressed as Santa. It was famously pulled from theatres due to protests from parents.
I don't know why parents would be letting their children to go and see it.
No.
If that is the case, because I think it was probably even marketed as a horror film. Mm-hmm. So it's not 100%. You're not going in thinking it's Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
I don't really think that there's any way to market a depressed man who goes on a killing spree as like a festive family cheering film.
Yeah, so let's go and see this cheer where this guy goes on a bit of a murderous rampage.
Christmas cheer.
And
chilling chunks of people.
Chilling chunks of people. There we go. That's there we go. There's the little tagline for the film.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, we have Christmas Evil in 1980, which is often cited by director John Waters as his favourite holiday film. And it's a psychological slasher about a man obsessed with being the real Santa, descending into madness when the world doesn't meet his Christmas standards.
Santa dudes.
Santa dudes.
Sorry, that was a reach.
I think we both need to stop with the jokes now because we're people are gonna love these.
Yeah.
Actually. So if someone's listening, you can make a quote, like a quote list of all of the jokes that we said.
Yeah, all the puns.
All the puns, please list them below.
However, before we wrap up the episode, I've got one more recommendation for you.
Ooh, a Jodie recommendation.
Yes, which most people wouldn't deem a Christmas film, but it's the same argument as Die Hard. I know it's like Die Hard is set at a Christmas party. There is a Christmas tree in the background scene of this film.
Ah, I know what you're going to say.
And it's The Conjuring 2.
Yep. Because you showed me
I did.
a clip from it yesterday.
Yep.
And you said it is a Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
It does take place around Christmas, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So could The Conjuring 2 have the same argument as Die Hard as being a Christmas movie because it's set around Christmas?
There's a Christmas tree in the background, so yes.
It's not very merry, but
no.
Let us know in the comments below.
But it does end up being about family in the end.
It is. It's a family kind of situation.
And coming together through horrors
at the end.
And other issues because of the family circumstances that get them into the demonic situation in the first place.
Yes, but nonetheless, let us know, is The Conjuring 2 a Christmas movie or not?
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear your opinion.
But on the back of that, it actually leads us to the end of today's episode.
There we go. The end of the winter season is...
The end of the winter season is upon us. So if you have shivered your way through tonight's punishment of an episode, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for Bad Boo updates and new episodes, as there's plenty more frights, flicks and folklore to come.
You can also haunt us on socials at Bad Boo Productions, where you can interact and leave suggestions for future episodes or contribute through polls and posts.
And if you're after more creepy content, then our Patreon is live. So if you'd like to hear and even see more of us, then head over there for exclusive Boo Crew videos, stories and live streams.
So that's all from us for this beastly episode today. We've been your haunted hosts, Sam and Jodie, unravelling the dark so you don't have to. And actually, we hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and we wish you a very Happy New Year, because next time you hear from us, it'll be 2026.
It will be. With some new year frights, flicks and folklores for you.
To come, indeed. So,
sorry, that's meant to be funny, like new, as in like new frights, flicks and folklore, but like new year.
New year.
Yeah. Okay.
You get the gist.
It's getting to the end of the year, guys. We're tired.
we're looking forward to seeing you all and seeing how Bad Boo changes and grows and evolves in 2026.
And we've hoped that you've enjoyed the start of this journey from October. It's already been 2 months.
It has.
Like 2 entire months.
2 entire months of Bad Boo. So thank you to everyone who has supported us throughout the end of 2025 and the start, because this is just the beginning.
It is just the beginning.
And until next time, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, the shadows are never empty.